Hey, friends, some of you have been saying I haven't been given equal time to my dog Chloe. This is my 6-pound, 11-year-old Shih Tzu. She's always at my feet during these videos, but she's a little shyer than Grayson. Grayson the cat, he likes making an appearance in all my videos and jumping in on me, but he's an outdoor cat. Chloe's an inside dog. They get along great when they go out on the porch together. Hey, folks. Is your plant stuck on the hamster wheel of we learn a process, we learn best practices, then we forget them, we drift away, we have a failure, we relearn them, and then you train everybody, 3 or 4 years pass, then you'll fail again, have a customer quality problem, you have a productivity problem, you have a safety problem, environmental problem, and you just keep learning the same lessons over and over again. Is every day a fire drill at your plant? You come in, you have this crisis, and this is what you do 90% of your day, follow the disaster. Can be safety, can be environmental, can be production, efficiency, customer satisfaction, all these things. The disasters they repeat every 3 to 5 years, so that means every single week we've got a new disaster of the week. You finally get it solved on Friday. Monday brings a new opportunity to you. Just because of drift in process discipline, people forget why we were doing things, why we do things a certain way, and the discipline of getting things done and institutionalizing those practices eludes you. It's in people's heads around how things are done. People change jobs. People, they get promoted. People move on. People look for shortcuts, and they forget why we're doing things. Does that sound like your plant? It's chaos, right? Frustrating, right? Why can't we just learn things one time, implement a solution, sustain it as part of our DNA and our culture, and we never have to learn that lesson again 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Why can't we do that? Well, there is a process for doing that. It's called process management. Now, I have 28 years of experience working in a plant and a system that captures those lessons learning in a process, and the process is part of the system, and it's not in people's heads, so you don't relearn things. So hey, today I'm giving that away for free. Hang on, this could change your career. This is a big deal. It does no good to know best practices, to train people on best practices, if you have no ability to execute that day after day, week after week, year after year, and you end up wasting tens of millions of dollars, probably billions in this country, every country, along with safety issues, environmental issues, customer satisfaction issues, because of a lack of process discipline. What can you do about that? Hey, this is Joe Kuhn of Lean-Driven Reliability, bridging the gap between best practices that you should be doing, can't quite figure out how to get it done, and do it day in, day out at your plant. Hey folks, standards are how people have learned to work. From operating manuals, they may have learned it from expertise in the field, expertise at your plant. A lot of times you just learn from failures. Failures happen, you get corrective actions, and you communicate how you're going to do that. Unfortunately, and this may be a new term for several of you, standards drift. The word drift, it comes from really why you're doing something, why you have a standard for doing it this way so it's most efficient or it's the highest quality, more predictable result. The why slips because, we had an event 5 years ago, half the people are new, we start taking shortcuts and don't understand the value of some steps because, that tribal knowledge is gone. Drift is the cancer that plants must solve. They must solve drift. What are you doing at your plant to prevent that drift from occurring? Is it, routine communication? Put it up on a bulletin board that nobody reads? Is it just tribal knowledge that, people are supposed to know it? We trained them 10 years ago. Why did they forget? What's your system to keep drift from occurring? Also think of this is massive, the opportunity cost of the chaos in your plant. That chaos that I said every, day is a brand new day, disaster management. All your effort is just trying to keep your head above water. And on Friday you go home and you're like, yeah, let's try to get on Monday. What if you had process stability and you had predictability? You only learn things one time and you institutionalize them. What are you going to do with all that free time? Look at the value of the innovation creation time that comes from that newfound stability. This is often, and I would say most often, almost guaranteed to be 10, 20, 30 times the savings that you're going to get just from the stability is the innovation time that is unlocked, the time to create from new customers, new productivity levels. You get better at quality. You get your process parameters tightened. You can go into new markets. All kinds of things are unlocked from the lack of chaos, okay? It's just huge, okay? So the term that I use is called process management. Okay, now this is going to be much more detailed than most of my videos, okay? But rest assured, go to my website, okay? The link is in the text below this video. Go to the website, click on it, doesn't cost you anything. Go in, along the top, there's a tab called Documents. Click that and you'll see 5 documents there. One of them, the last one, number 5, is process management. All this is laid out in a little bit more detail. It's about 5 pages long and it's free. Okay, process management. Okay, like I said, it's a little higher complexity, but it's not difficult and hard to understand, but there's a lot of moving parts that all come together. So I'm going to kind of gloss over the top of process management. First of all, you got a process manager. This is somebody in your organization that is going to own a process, okay? And that process, to use an example, I'm going to use examples from a car wash, okay? A car wash business. You take a car, it's dirty, and you bring it through this process and it's clean on the end. So you may have a process manager of bugs on the windshield. So you want to put the car in there and the car wash, it comes out the other end. Are there bugs on the windshield? Okay, so you don't have a process manager that manages overall cleanliness of the car. There's a lot of different systems that clean your tires, clean your undercarriage, clean the sides, clean the side mirrors. This is purely a process to look at the windows. And you give this process to one of the operators and says, your job is to monitor this process and to improve it, okay? So, it's important to pick something fairly small where this person can manage the number of problems, okay? So that's a process manager. A small plant of maybe 50 people, you may have 40 processes that you manage. A large plant of a couple thousand, the one I was at, we had several hundred processes being managed. And this, drives stability, it drives ownership, and drives improvement by having these process managers, okay? Now, we have an overall quality system manager. Now, this person really owns all the systems that support the process manager, okay? For example, change control, corrective actions. What are those processes that they need if you're a process manager and you have a deviation like the amount of bugs on the windshield goes up 10x. What's the corrective actions? What are the approvals from that? So there's documents that support the process manager. Also, the quality system manager is the person that owns the criteria for how do you advance your process. And by advancing it, you advance it through I'll say color codes, but like if your process is graded blank, okay, that means you're not measuring anything. If it's rated red, that means you're measuring your critical output measures. In the car wash example, that would be, number of bugs on the windshield, okay, or windshields that have bugs on them. So if you washed 100 cars and 2 of them have bugs on the windshield, your rating is 98%, okay? So that would be an output measure. And if you're only measuring output measures, you're red. You're yellow if you're measuring output and you're measuring what are the critical input variables. Critical input variables to bugs on the windshield, if that's your process, could be the concentration of soap, could be the PSI that the spray is going on the windshield. So PSI and let's say soap concentration, if those are in line, you don't have bugs. So this person is measuring those input variables, and thus your system is yellow. In addition, in yellow, there's some certain audits you need to do, like, hey, twice a week I'm going to go out and I'm going to measure, I'm going to look at the readings for the PSI and the soap concentration. And then I'm going to talk to operators around how they operate certain pieces of equipment. So that may be to get a system to be yellow. To be green, you have to have all those input variables and output variables. You control chart those, and you have those all within spec for 3 months. So if you're 3 months, you move from yellow to green. And once you're green for 12 months, and you have all those things being monitored, input variables and output variables, for 12 months, you are now purple, okay? So that's what the quality system manager is grading, auditing all the processes in the plant, against those standards, helping coach the process manager on the requirements to be different color-coded system. Also, this the quality system manager issues summary reports to the executive team there at the plant. So imagine an Excel spreadsheet with 25 processes listed, and you got all these color codes of what color they are. And then by a quick visual, you can tell, are your plants in control? Are they capable, right? And you understand where your weaknesses are, and those are foretelling of financial problems or problems in the future. If you're not controlling your processes, your results are going to go, south pretty quick. Okay, so that's a quality system manager. That person understands the process of controlling processes, not necessarily an expert of the manufacturing process. The process manager is an expert on the process. So hopefully I'm not confusing you in there in any way. This is all in the document. Okay, the third person that's critical to this is a sponsor. Okay, this sponsor is typically one layer higher in the organization than the process manager. This person, is responsible for, I'm going to say sponsoring, but for selling the organization on the values of process management, and is supporting the process manager, is actually auditing them, finding out how they can help, what problems are they having in the organization that the sponsor may be able to help with. It puts process management in people's performance expectations, rewards, and recognizes. So the sponsor is very key. Again, I go into a lot more detail in the document on my website. Specific actions of the process manager, name a few here, is they know and communicate the business case for having a process manager. You don't want to just put a process manager on a process if it doesn't mean anything. In this example of car wash to clean bugs on the windshield, that's a big customer dissatisfaction. They're not going to come to your car wash if they go through and half the time their window's not clean, okay? So what's the estimate of the value of having clean windshields every time? They support the process manager. They perform audits themselves, both in the conference room and out on the shop floor. So they actually once a year sit down with the process manager and says, show me your results. That shows sponsorship. They ensure the process managers have time. They knock down barriers. They set quality expectations. Hey, we need to go from 98% clean windshields to 99. What's it take to get there? Let me know how I can help. And they make organizational changes with people that aren't on board with the process discipline that process management puts in an organization. Sometimes people want it to be what I call a cowboy. They want to do things their own way. Well, process management is a discipline, okay? The quality system manager, the person that overall owns a process, what do? Again, I said they own all the documents and standards for change control, also corrective action. They own the system ratings. They give the initial rating of saying, hey, that process is green, that process is purple. They act as a coach and a teacher to all process managers. They own the reports going to top leadership. They speak candidly with top leadership and saying, hey, we're not making progress here. This system is going south. Our clean windshields are down to 70%. This is going to affect the business very quickly. It's an early indicator of problems, your process managers, okay? And the quality system manager can see holistically what's happening with all the processes. So the process managers, they do a lot. It's a lot of graphing. They're going out and collecting data and saying, here's where we are. Here's the standard for the plant. Here's where we are. I use the windshield as windshields clean is a good process to be managed instead of total car being clean as a process. They document the output variables. They document the input variables. They conduct the training. They decide when people need refresher training. They audit processes. So if somebody is supposed to be doing something once a shift, is that happening once a shift? And I talked about, they're the ones that need to advance their processes from, blank to red to yellow to green and eventually to purple. They maintain all the change control documents, all the corrective action documents. And sometimes these processes, you can have multiple people be in charge. So for example, if you want production and maintenance to work together, you can have a production person and a mechanic be co-process managers for a process. And so they're setting all the standards for how to control this process, that may be like windshields being bug free. Process management, folks, you need to know going into this, doesn't have an end. It's something you start. This is a discipline that you're putting in the organization. Here's how you do change control. Here's how you do corrective actions. They're all the same general form. There's a lot of freedom to act within there, but we have the skeleton of how those jobs are done. We have the skeleton of how do you control the process? Well, here's how you control the process. You start plotting the output measures. You start plotting the input variables. You start auditing the SOPs out in the area. All those processes are well defined and coached by the quality system manager. Hopefully that makes sense. Now it may happen that you have, you may say, boy, 10 years in the future, you have an engineered solution that comes in on a process. Well, you may decide that, boy, we really can't have any bugs on windshield anymore because we got automatic alarms on our soap concentration and automatic alarms on our PSI of our rinse. It's never going to happen anymore because we invested, $100,000 into this unit. It's not going to happen. Well, you may progress your process to blue, which means you kind of got it on a sustain mode and you have less audits and less documentation and less training to have a process be blue. But hey, it's not bad to have processes be blue because that means you've really conquered the root cause. So anyway, do you see how easy it is to know the status of all the systems in your plant? Maybe you got 50 systems in your plant. It could be lube compliance. Lubrication could be a process to be managed. We're doing all of our lubes right. We are doing them 100% of the time. We're doing them right. You can see that in the color. You can see if that is purple or blue, that you're doing them all the time. If it drifts to red, hey, you've got a problem with lubrication, and that was one of our number one maintenance things we were going to focus on this year is to do all our lubrication, and it's red, and it was supposed to be purple. Okay, everyone knows what is a good controlled process. Just by the color, it has all these components. It's just not like Larry watches that or Jane watches that. If they're purple, exactly what is contained and controlled in that process. And they have a coach, and it's audited, okay? It's a massive enabler to stability. What is your confidence in your system that you have at your plant right now that you're controlling your processes? Is it just in people's head? And Jane watches that. Bill watches that. What if Bill wins the lottery? You stop lubricating machines? You let bugs get on the windshield again because he used to monitor the soap level, and the PSI diligently. Well, when Bill wins the lottery, the next person that comes in, say it's, Mary, You hand Mary the logbook of all the corrective actions, all the procedures, all the training, all the input variables. Look at that transition. It's institutionalized knowledge and learning. You fail one time and then it's institutionalized. Does that make sense? Now, some people talk about, hey, we don't have time to do this. We don't have the people to do this. And I, after being in the culture for so long, I laugh at that. What do you mean you don't have the people? That's because you're firefighting 4.5 days a week. Take the firefighting out and you got plenty of people. Okay, so you got to start doing something different. Process management takes the chaos out of your business by institutionalizing best practices and standards. Okay, that I can't stress that enough. How it institutionalizes it, and for generations. Okay, and it does. Another complaint I hear is it takes away some of the creativity. That's a fear. That's not a reality. There is enormous amount of creativity, but it's inside of a skeleton framework that, hey, you need to cover all 5 of these points. That makes a good managed process. You don't cover all 5 of them, it's not a good managed process, but a lot of freedom of what to do inside of each one of those. So, hey, folks, I'm winding down here. Hang on with me, not too much longer. Examples of processes to be managed, safety. It could be finger cuts on a particular piece of equipment, You got to do these 7 things right, and they're a precursor to having your numbers get really bad. You're measuring those input variables, you're training people, you're doing the discipline up front, which leads to the output measures. Environmental, this could be total suspended solids in a ditch. You got to do these 10 things every single day, and you will not get an environmental excursion. Quality, it could be sheet thickness, could be the material tensile strength. You have to make these adds of equipment. You have to run at this certain temperature. Production could be scrap at a certain production center. Hey, our scrap rate is 10%, and here's what we're doing to try to get that to 8%. Here's how we lock it in so we don't drift down to 15, 20, 50% scrap rate. Pounds per hour could be one. Maintenance. You have your planning process, your kitting and staging process, could be lubrication, could be equipment health. Are you doing the PMs on a particular piece of equipment? Where are we at with PMs? Do you audit the PMs for precision? Problem solving, wrench time, motor management. What are we doing around motors? Are we doing that every time? Or we just say, well, Bill does motor management? Or do we say, no, here's our motor management program. It is purple. Here's the input variables. Here's the output. Here's our audits, here's our checks. Is it institutionalized? Okay, folks, and then, I've got some examples in this document around process management and corrective actions that you can have for free. If I can help you out in any way, send me a line, okay? Send me a comment, send me an email. Begin your journey, folks. This isn't that hard. This was a complex topic, a lot of moving parts, but process management can change your career. This is Joe out.